The ultimatum. The night sky changed forever on October 15th, 2157. Commander, Lisa Rodriguez was finishing her third cup of coffee in the observation lounge of the International Space Station when the sensors went haywire. Every detection system humanity had pointed at the stars began screaming warnings simultaneously. She barely had time to set down her mug before the emergency klaxons blared through the entire station. Commander, we have multiple contacts. Ensign Park's voice cracked over the intercom. They just appeared out of nowhere, ma'am. No warp signatures, no gravitational distortions, nothing. They're just there. Lisa sprinted to the command module, her heart pounding against her ribs. Through the reinforced windows she saw them. Ships, dozens of them, each one the size of Manhattan, hanging in the void like predatory birds circling their prey. They were angular and brutal in design, covered in what looked like crystalline armor that refracted Earth's sunlight into 1,000 hostile colors. Within minutes, every screen on Earth displayed the same image. The ships had hijacked every broadcast system, every satellite feed, every digital display on the planet. The face that appeared was humanoid enough to be disturbing, with two large eyes the color of molten gold and skin that seemed to shift between blue and violet. People of Earth, the being spoke in a voice that bypassed translation, somehow understood by every listener in their native tongue. I am Supreme Commander Vector of the Kelthon Dominion. Your species has been evaluated and found sufficiently developed to warrant our attention. We claim this system and all its resources in the name of the Dominion. You have 48 hours to surrender your world unconditionally. Resistance will result in extermination. Compliance will result in integration into our empire as a subordinate species. Choose wisely. The transmission ended as abruptly as it had begun. For 30 seconds, the world held its breath. Then chaos erupted. In Geneva, the Emergency World Council convened within the hour. Every nation's leadership appeared via holographic projection, their faces grave. General Marcus Chen of the United Earth Defense Force stood at the head of the table, his dress uniform looking suddenly inadequate for the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be direct, Chen began, his voice steady despite the trembling in his hands. We've run every simulation. Our most optimistic models give us a 12% chance of destroying even one of their vessels before they wipe us out. Our nuclear arsenal would be like throwing pebbles at a battleship. Our orbital defense platforms are 30 years behind whatever technology is hanging over our heads right now. Surely we can negotiate, the European Union representative interjected. Every species values something. We can offer trade, cultural exchange, scientific cooperation. They don't want cooperation, interrupted Prime Minister Okonkwo of the African Coalition. They want submission. The message was clear. We're being given a choice between slavery and extinction. The debate raged for hours, accomplishing nothing. How do you fight an enemy you can't hurt? How do you negotiate with someone who sees you as property? On the lunar surface, the Tranquility mining colony continued its operations, trying to maintain normalcy even as the world below dissolved into panic. Colony Administrator James Reeves had kept his 300 workers focused on their jobs, believing that routine was the best antidote to fear. He was in the command center when the sky lit up. A single beam of crimson energy lanced down from one of the Kelthon ships in orbit. It struck the colony's main habitat dome with surgical precision. The reinforced titanium alloy structure, designed to withstand meteor impacts and solar radiation, lasted exactly 2.3 seconds before it vaporized. The beam continued through the colony's 3 sublevels, through the mining equipment, through the reinforced bedrock, and out the other side of the moon. 300 souls ceased to exist in an instant. Every telescope on Earth witnessed it. Every astronomical observatory recorded the data. The message was unmistakable. This was what awaited resistance. Dr. Elena Vasquez barely registered the news of the lunar colony. She was too focused on her screens at the Mauna Kea Observatory in Hawaii. For the past 6 hours, she'd been tracking something that made no sense whatsoever. Quantum fluctuations near Jupiter's orbit, far too regular to be natural, too massive to be explained by any known phenomenon. Elena, you need to see this. Her research partner, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, pulled up a new data stream. I've been monitoring background radiation levels. Look at this pattern. The graphs showed waves of exotic particles flowing in from the outer solar system, growing stronger by the hour. Elena had spent 20 years studying quantum mechanics, and she'd never seen anything like it. It's like space itself is getting ready to tear open, Yuki whispered. That's impossible, Elena replied, even as her mind raced through the implications. The energy requirements would be astronomical. We're talking about power outputs equivalent to a star. Should we report this? Elena looked at the news feeds showing riots in major cities, military mobilizations, mass evacuations that had nowhere to go. Who would listen? Everyone's preparing for the end. With 30 hours left until the deadline, President Amanda Torres addressed the world from the presidential emergency bunker. Her face, projected on every functioning screen globally, showed the weight of impossible choices. My fellow citizens of Earth, she began, her voice carefully controlled. After consultation with every world leader, every military advisor, and every scientific expert we have, I must deliver difficult news. We cannot win a military confrontation with the Kelthon Dominion. Their technology is centuries, perhaps millennia, beyond our own. Every hour we delay is an hour more they might decide to simply destroy us rather than wait for our answer. She paused, and for a moment the mask of leadership slipped. She looked like what she was, a terrified human facing the unimaginable. Therefore, I am announcing that Earth will accept the Kelthon terms. We will surrender at noon tomorrow, Greenwich Mean Time. We do this not out of cowardice, but out of hope. Hope that surrender means survival. Hope that our children will live to see another day, even if that day is under alien rule. Hope that humanity's story doesn't end here. The speech continued, but most people stopped listening. Some took to the streets in protest, refusing to accept submission. Others gathered with their families, holding each other close. In churches, mosques, temples, and synagogues across the world, people prayed to their various gods for deliverance that seemed impossible. Commander Rodriguez watched from the ISS as Earth below descended into a mixture of despair and defiant rage. She'd already received orders to evacuate the station. There was no point in maintaining Earth's orbital presence when that presence was about to belong to someone else. She was overseeing the final data backups when Ensign Park called out again, this time with confusion rather than fear. Commander Dr. Vasquez from Mauna Kea is on the emergency channel. She says it's urgent. Put her through. Elena's face appeared on the screen, exhausted but animated with barely contained excitement. Commander, I need you to point every sensor you have toward Jupiter now. Doctor, we're evacuating. Do it. Please, something is happening out there. Something big. Something in Elena's voice made Lisa comply. She redirected the station's sensor array toward the outer solar system. For a moment, nothing seemed unusual. Then the readings started coming in and Lisa felt her blood run cold. That's not possible, she breathed. Space was breaking. There was no other way to describe it. Beyond Jupiter's orbit, reality itself was coming apart. Not exploding, not collapsing, but unraveling like fabric being torn by invisible hands. Energy readings spiked off the scale. Gravitational waves pulsed outward in patterns that defied physics. Light bent in ways that shouldn't exist. What is that? Park whispered. I don't know, Lisa replied, unable to look away from the impossible sight. But it's getting bigger. The phenomenon expanded rapidly, a wound in the fabric of space growing wider by the second. And then from within that tear in reality something emerged. Ships. They were nothing like the Kelthon vessels. Where the Dominion's fleet was angular and aggressive, these craft were smooth and organic, like living things made of metal and energy. They were massive, dwarfing even the largest Kelthon dreadnought, and they were completely, utterly black. Not the black of paint or metal, but the absolute darkness of a void that consumed all light touching it. Hundreds of them poured through the rift, moving in perfect synchronization. No visible engines, no exhaust, no heat signatures. They simply moved through space as if momentum and inertia were polite suggestions they chose to ignore. Commander, Park's voice was barely audible. They're accelerating. They're heading toward Earth. Lisa's hands flew across her console, trying to get any information about the newcomers. Try to contact them. All frequencies, all languages, every protocol we have. No response, ma'am. They're not acknowledging any of our hails. Above Earth, aboard the Kelthon flagship Dominion's Fist, Supreme Commander Vector was receiving the same readings. His golden eyes narrowed as he studied the approaching fleet. Scan them, he ordered his tactical officer. Match their configuration against all known species in our database. After 5 minutes of intensive scanning, His tactical officer turned back with an expression Vector had never seen on a Kelthon face before. Fear. Commander, there's no match. These ships don't correspond to any known technology. The materials they're made from don't exist in our periodic table. The energy signatures they're producing, they're operating on principles our science says are impossible. Vector's hand tightened on his command throne. Impossible. We know every major power in this sector. Yes, Commander, and these are not one of them. With 2 hours remaining until Earth's surrender, the mysterious Black Fleet crossed the orbit of Neptune. They showed no signs of slowing down. They broadcast no messages, made no demands, offered no explanations. They simply came silent and inexorable as death itself. And across Earth, humanity held its breath once more, caught between two unknown forces, wondering if their salvation had arrived, or if they had simply attracted the attention of something far worse than the Kelthon could ever be. Revelation. The Black Fleet reached Mars orbit in 17 minutes. Dr. Elena Vasquez had calculated that journey should have taken at least 3 hours at maximum conventional thrust. These vessels were moving at speeds that made Einstein roll over in his grave. They hadn't activated any warp drives or jump gates. They simply ignored the speed limit of the universe like it was an inconvenient suggestion. Commander Rodriguez had every sensor on the ISS locked onto the approaching fleet. "Get me President Torres," she ordered. "She needs to see this." Within seconds, the president's face appeared on the split screen, her emergency bunker command center visible behind her. "Commander, report." "Madam President, the unknown fleet is approaching Earth at impossible velocity. They'll be here within the hour. They've ignored all our attempts at communication. I recommend we—" "Commander," Torres interrupted, her face pale. "The Kelthon are moving to intercept them." Everyone in the ISS command module fell silent. Through the observation windows, they could see it happening. The Kelthon fleet, which had been maintaining geosynchronous orbit above Earth's major cities, was repositioning. The crystalline warships moved into a defensive formation between Earth and the approaching Black Fleet, spreading out across space like a net of death. Supreme Commander Vector broadcast on all frequencies, his voice filled with barely restrained fury. "Unknown vessels, you are entering territory claimed by the Kelthon Dominion. This world has been annexed by our empire. You have 10 minutes to alter course or be destroyed. This is your only warning." The black ships didn't slow, didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge the message. 8 minutes later, the Kelthon opened fire. Elena watched from Mauna Kea as space lit up like the birth of a new sun. The Kelthon weapon systems were designed to crack planets, particle beams that could boil away oceans, plasma cannons that could vaporize mountains, kinetic kill vehicles moving at a significant fraction of light speed, gravity warheads that could compress matter into artificial singularities, all of it. Everything the Dominion had perfected over 3 millennia of conquest was unleashed at once. The energy readings were so extreme that half of Elena's instruments overloaded and shut down to prevent damage. Every amateur astronomer on Earth's night side could see the battle with their naked eyes, like watching a spectacular fireworks display that meant the end of the world. Through the ISS's advanced sensors, Commander Rodriguez saw what happened when that apocalyptic firepower hit the Black Fleet shields. Nothing, not a deflection, not an absorption, not even a ripple of impact. The Kelthon weapons simply ceased to exist the moment they touched those shields. 1 second, a planet-killing plasma bolt was streaking toward its target. The next second, it was gone, erased from reality as if it had never been fired. "Jesus Christ," Park whispered. "What are we seeing?" "I think," Rodriguez replied slowly, "we're seeing the difference between gods and mortals." On the Dominion's fist, panic was setting in. Vector's tactical displays showed impossible readings. 0 damage, 0 shield depletion, 0 effect. 3,000 years of Kelthon military supremacy had just become meaningless. "Maximum yield weapons," Vector roared. "Authorization code Vector Omega Extinction. Fire everything." His crew hesitated. Maximum yield weapons were planet killers, banned by the Dominion's own laws except in the most extreme circumstances. Using them this close to Earth meant the human world would be caught in the blast radius. "Now," Vector screamed. The Kelthon fleet fired its forbidden arsenal. Weapons that could shatter worlds, reduce entire planets to cosmic dust, were launched in desperation. Earth's orbital sensors detected the launch. and automatically began calculating humanity's remaining lifespan. 4 minutes until the shockwave hit. 3 minutes until Earth's atmosphere was stripped away. 2 minutes until the Black Fleet moved. They didn't accelerate gradually or maneuver carefully. They simply were in one place, and then they were in another place as if they'd skipped the space between. One moment they were 1,000,000 kilometers away. The next moment they were in the midst of the Kelthon formation. What happened next lasted 11 minutes and 23 seconds, and it rewrote humanity's understanding of war. The black ships didn't fire weapons. They didn't need to. They simply passed through the Kelthon fleet like phantoms through walls, and wherever they passed, Kelthon ships died. Not exploded. Not destroyed. They just stopped. Commander Rodriguez watched as a Kelthon dreadnought, its shields at full power and weapons blazing, was touched by one of the black vessels. In an instant, every light on the dreadnought went dark. Its engines ceased. Its shields collapsed. Its weapons fell silent. The ship became a dead hulk tumbling through space, somehow intact but completely powerless. They're not destroying them, Elena realized, watching her instruments from Earth. They're shutting them down, like turning off a light switch. All across the Kelthon formation, the same scene repeated. Dozens of warships, each capable of enslaving entire civilizations, reduced to floating debris in moments. The few Kelthon vessels that tried to flee found their engines failing the moment they attempted to initiate their faster-than-light drives. Supreme Commander Vector stood on his bridge, watching his fleet die around him, and felt something he hadn't experienced in his 400 years of life. Helplessness. His hands trembled as he reached for the communication console. "Retreat," he whispered. "Commander?" his tactical officer asked, uncertain. "Retreat," Vector shouted. "All ships, emergency jump, any destination, just get us out of this system." The Dominion's Fist and 3 other Kelthon vessels managed to activate their jump drives before the Black Fleet reached them. They vanished in flashes of distorted spacetime, fleeing back to whatever dark corner of the galaxy they'd come from. The rest of the Kelthon Armada floated dead in space, 42 mighty warships reduced to powerless hulks in less than 12 minutes. The Black Fleet stopped. They hung motionless in orbit, surrounding Earth like a crown of darkness. For the first time since they'd appeared, they made no further aggressive moves. They simply waited. On Earth, 7 billion people held their collective breath. Commander Rodriguez had been trying to contact the mysterious fleet for the past hour, with no success. Then, without warning, her personal comm unit activated. A voice spoke, calm, measured, and unmistakably human. "Commander Lisa Rodriguez of the International Space Station, please respond." Lisa's hand shook as she activated her microphone. "This is Commander Rodriguez. Who am I speaking with?" "My name is Captain Marcus Chen. I understand this must be confusing. May I come aboard to speak with you in person? I believe face-to-face communication would be more appropriate for what I need to tell you." "You're human?" Lisa couldn't keep the shock from her voice. After a fashion, permission to dock? 20 minutes later, Commander Rodriguez stood in the ISS docking bay watching a small craft approach from the nearest black ship. The vessel was the size of a personal shuttle, smooth and featureless. It attached to the docking port without any visible means of propulsion, the airlock sealing with a soft hiss. When the door opened, a man stepped through. He wore no spacesuit, just a simple uniform of a design Lisa had never seen. He looked to be in his mid-40s with Asian features and an expression of deep sadness. "Commander Rodriguez," he said, extending his hand. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." "You're human," Lisa repeated, shaking his hand in a daze. "How is this possible? Who are you people?" "We're human," Captain Chen confirmed. "And we're here to protect Earth. We've been protecting Earth for a very long time." "That's impossible. We would know." "Come," Chen interrupted gently. "Let me show you something." He led her to the observation window overlooking Earth. His eyes grew distant as if he were looking at something far beyond the planet below. 60,000 years ago, Chen began, Earth wasn't called Earth. Humanity hadn't yet spread across the globe. We were just another species struggling to survive in a dangerous world. But we were being watched. An ancient race called the progenitors had been monitoring our evolution. They saw something in us, potential perhaps, or maybe just curiosity. They decided to conduct an experiment. Lisa wanted to interrupt to call this story insane, But something in Chen's eyes kept her silent. The progenitors took a small population of humans, perhaps 10,000 individuals, and transported them across the galaxy. They gave them technology, knowledge, and the means to survive in the greater universe. They wanted to see what humans could become without the limitations of a single world. "This is insane," Lisa whispered. "Is it?" Chen gestured toward the black fleet outside. "You've just watched us defeat in 12 minutes an enemy you couldn't hope to touch. The progenitors gave our ancestors 60,000 years to develop, to evolve, to become something more. They're long gone now, extinct or ascended or simply moved on. But we remained. We called ourselves the Exodus. The humans who left. And you've been out there all this time, while we struggled and fought and nearly destroyed ourselves?" "Yes," Chen said simply. "We've been watching. We've been waiting. Waiting for what? For you to be ready. For Earth to reach the point where it could defend itself. For humanity to develop enough that first contact wouldn't destroy your civilization." His expression grew pained. "We have strict laws, non-interference protocols we've maintained for 60 millennia. We've watched you survive ice ages, plagues, wars, near extinctions. We've watched and not intervened, no matter how much it hurt. But you intervened today. Because today you face something you couldn't possibly survive alone. The Kelthon would have enslaved your world. We couldn't let that happen. You're our brothers and sisters, separated by time and space, but still family. We had to break our most sacred law to save you." Commander Rodriguez felt tears streaming down her face. "You're saying humanity isn't alone?" "We never were." "No," Chen smiled sadly. "You were never alone. We've been watching over you since the beginning, silent guardians, waiting in the dark." By the time President Torres appeared on every screen globally again, the entire world had heard the story. Captain Chen had agreed to a broadcast to answer the questions that burned in every human heart. "People of Earth," Torres began, "I know the revelations of the past hour have been overwhelming, but Captain Chen has agreed to address you directly." Chen stepped forward, looking into the camera that would carry his image to billions. "People of Earth, my name is Marcus Chen. I am human as any of you, though my ancestors left this world so long ago that my existence seems impossible. I'm here to tell you that you're not alone in the universe, and you never have been." He paused, letting that sink in. "The Exodus, that's what we call ourselves, consists of 12 billion humans living across 300 worlds in this region of space. We've been watching over Earth since before your recorded history began. We've seen your greatest triumphs and darkest failures. We've celebrated your achievements and mourned your losses. And we've remained hidden, bound by laws that forbade us from revealing ourselves until you were ready. Today, those laws were broken out of necessity, but now that you know we exist, everything changes. Earth will no longer face the universe alone. You have family among the stars, and we will teach you, guide you, protect you as you take your first steps into the greater galactic community. The Kelthon will not return. We've made certain of that, but there are other dangers out there, other empires and powers. You'll need to grow strong. You'll need to learn. And we'll be here to help." Chen's expression softened. "I know this is overwhelming. I know you have millions of questions. We'll answer them all in time. For now, know this. Humanity's future is not one of submission or extinction. It's a future of wonder, of exploration, of taking your rightful place among the civilizations of the galaxy. You are not alone. You have never been alone." The broadcast ended. Across Earth, people looked up at the night sky with new eyes. The stars were no longer distant points of light representing impossibility and isolation. They were home to family, to protectors, to humans who had walked a different path, but never forgotten where they came from. Commander Rodriguez stood in the observation lounge, watching the black fleet begin to move. They weren't leaving, just repositioning, taking up patrol orbits that would shield Earth from any future threats. "What happens now?" she asked Chen, who had remained aboard the ISS. "Now? Now we teach. Now we share. Now humanity begins the greatest adventure in its history. Together." He smiled. And for the first time, Lisa saw not just the ancient guardian behind those eyes, but the simple joy of a man who had finally come home. "Welcome to the galaxy," Chen said. "Welcome to your future. Welcome home." Outside, the black ships of the Exodus maintained their watch as they had for 60,000 years. Silent guardians no more, but protectors revealed, watching over the cradle of humanity as their distant cousins prepared to join them among the stars. The age of isolation was over. The age of wonder had begun, and Earth finally was ready.